think at its basest level, anxiety is anticipating that, you have to cope with something and you don't have the resources to cope with it, right? So something's going to happen and I'm not going to be able to do this. And that kind of makes us feel worried and inadequate and might make us feel low and might make us feel agitated. Now, the way that we tend to contend with anxiety actually feeds into the problem because the underside of anxiety is avoidance. If I'm anxious about dogs, excuse me, I stay away from dogs. If I'm anxious about maths, I stay away from math. And actually, the solution becomes part of the problem. Precisely when I'm afraid of dogs, of public speaking, of maths is when I should be edging towards it. Now, of course, you can do this incrementally. You can do this in a really sort of, small, slow way. But the point is coming out of your comfort zone, because the only way we increase confidence in anything in life is doing the thing we never thought we could do. So, and again, I think the instinct that we have as parents, and I know this, the minute our child says, "Oh, I don't like this," you're like, "Okay, well, let's try something else." That's the moment where you kind of that instinct needs to be challenged. You need to be like, okay, well, sometimes, we don't like things for the wrong reasons, right? You don't have to be the best at something to like it. I think that's a really important point as well. I mean, I'm a god-awful singer. I still enjoy singing. And, and also this idea of overcoming, because then that feeds into your identity, right? So, I didn't think I could do this, but now I can. So kind of sticking with it and coming out of that comfort zone is the way, generally speaking, to kind of avoid that anxiety or challenge it. I think the first thing that's critical is this idea that we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And actually, confidence is a really interesting one. You know the saying, fake it till you make it? It really works because people can't tell the difference between genuine confidence and someone who's just standing with their shoulders back and kind of making good eye contact. Confidence is something that can be emulated. And interestingly enough, you get that positive feedback loop when you do emulate it. So I think that's the first thing, the idea that I'm going to get comfortable with being, uncomfortable, and kind of rest assured that if I do certain things, eventually it gets easier. The second one is having, I think, realistic goals, right? If I'm terrible at math, I'm not going to sit down going from not having done it for years to doing sort of university level math. I'm going to start incrementally doing it. And I'm going to give myself the best chance of succeeding or approximating to our success. And I'll mark that. We know that kind of marking it, even like I'm telling someone, right? We know that accountability and just those kind of basic rewards, right? We know that token economies work from the youngest kids right up to kind of people getting bonuses at huge banks just because it's an acknowledgement of what you've done. So you mark when you've done well. You have clear goals. That's a good one, right? So this is what I'm trying to do. And I think critically, it's about kind of understanding as well that there is always room for improvement. And the way that we do that is we focus on, like I said earlier, action versus outcome. That's a huge one because improvement is very rarely like that. It's like this, right? So those moments where you're having that dip, you're not going to be like, oh, that's it. I knew I was awful. You need to understand that, this sounds like a sort of cat poster slogan, but it's true. Success is a part of failure. Any successful person I've ever worked with, it's an approximation of smaller and bigger failures to get to the point that you want. So if you're embarking on any new skill, math or, running a 5K, it's not, never going to be a black and white thing. It's going to be those little approximations, and you need to see the failures as part of the success. The answer is absolutely. In the same way that kind of negative thinking style can be really contaminating other parts of your life. You go from like, I don't like this, part of my life to I don't like anything about my life. In the same way, confidence feeds into other things, right? So people tend to respond to it very much. You then tend to see yourself as not as somebody, it's that open, it's that growth mindset, all that wonderful research by, Professor Dweck, that kind of idea of like, you know what? There's always, room to grow and asking questions. And as you say, maybe I get a little embarrassed because it was a silly question. That's fine. room to grow. And once you have that mindset, it's very easy to kind of transfer that mindset from something as relatively, I guess, straightforward as getting the right or wrong answer in math to kind of being able to take that risk and go for that job or ask out that cute girl or guy on the date or whatever the case may be, because it is beautifully self-perpetuating. And also, I think speaks to kind of what we kind of aim for in life. I think far too many times in life, I think we aim for things that sound good on paper, right? We aim for happiness or ease, but actually we need to aim for adventure, and we need to aim for purpose and meaning. And while this isn't always easy or even joyful in the moment, we know that in the long run, this really feeds into our sense of self, into our view of the world and our expectations about life, and just makes it much more positive.